Thank you, Allison. Thanks everybody for coming out today. It's great to see some familiar faces who've been at other meetings and some new ones as well. So this is great. Molly, I think you and I moved here at the same time. I was 96, you 97. That was during the dot-com era.
Yeah.
And here you are like, I'm going to start my own company. And I asked her, because I was trying to think back then, I'm like, were many women starting companies back then compared to now, where it seems like we're a lot more aggressive? What was that like when you decided, okay, I'm going to leave the corporate HR gig that I had and follow my passion?
Yeah, so I'll just tell the story, kind of the catalyst for why I started my own business. And I was a director of HR, working at a Fortune 500 at the time, First Data Corporation. We had a pretty significant presence here. And it was one of those situations that I had been in the company 3 months, and you know it's not a good sign when you've been somewhere 3 months and you start a business plan. Like, this is telling. Like, it's not my path. As much as I was super passionate about the impact of HR when it's done well, and had also seen it done poorly. I was working on my master's and taking a class just down the street here, and it was about visionary leadership. And we were challenged to take a look 5 years into the future, and it had to be really personal as far as how the project was done and how the paper was written, as far as how do you feel, where are you sitting, who's around you. And so I started the VP of HR path, like just to that corporate path. And my professor called me out. He's like, your obstacles aren't big enough. You're not stretching yourself. And I'm like, you're totally right. I'm trying to get this project done. I need to travel next week. And so I ripped it up, started over with a business plan, which eventually became HRQ.
And that was it. And you just said when we were talking last week that it's continuing to grow. Back in January was another big milestone for HRQ.
Yeah, so it's been a journey. I think, I just started with, it was more a job, like creating a job for myself, but very quickly I was just like, I need to kind of detox from corporate America. I don't want to hire anyone, but things got busy, and I'm like, okay, I'm hiring. So fast forward, we have had a stretch the past 10 years, 7 of the past 10 years, we've made the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America list, which I'm super proud of the team. Like, it helped to have the downturn. It kind of took us back a step. We could kind of fake it for a few years, but it wasn't without intent. We just merged with another company January 1st, which Brian, who's the primary partner from that business, we've known each other 15 years, and he's sort of my advisory board. I'm just really humbled. I'm like, I get to work with you all the time.
And so, when you think about it, she had an amazing, great job in her late 20s in corporate HR and decided to do this. So I asked her last week, I'm like, were you an overachiever growing up? And she's like, no. Not a slacker, though.
Not a slacker.
But a risk taker. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking, of course, college basketball. Everyone in her family went to Michigan, and she went to Michigan State. So she is the one who kind of go off on her own. So, but still, starting your own business and then growing it, deciding when to hire, and then starting many other businesses, what do you think is inside you that gives you the confidence or the ideas and the follow-through?
In all honesty, and this was it's a cadence in my life that I've noticed since, really, when I reflect back even to high school or probably college, I work on a 2-year cycle. Oh. So I get bored and I need the next thing. So whether it was corporate jobs, I pretty much switched every 2 years, either in the company I was at or to other companies, and it is a challenge. I think the true story, if you want to know, my parents divorced when I was a freshman in high school. And I was the third child, so totally not the classic, first child, overachiever. And don't get me wrong, I was competitive. I went to college on an athletic scholarship. I did like to win. But it was seeing that, that my mom not having her independence and path and being dependent on men. God bless men. My husband's amazing. We're married 20 years this year. But kind of how that relationship works and what I'm just like, I will be a self-sufficient human being. Yeah.
Good. So if you're every 2 years you think of something.
Yeah.
What made you most recently think of flowers?
Oh, so I love flower bombers.
They're so pretty, aren't they?
Yeah, so Kyle asked me last week, she's like, well, do you just love flowers?
Are you a green thumb?
I'm a green thumb. And I'm like, well, I think most girls like flowers. But it's, I'm like, no. I wasn't the cattle. Like, I don't even get to really touch the flowers or play with the flowers. So I wanted to be a customer of our business. So when you think about just industries, it's a tired industry. I turned to my assistant several years ago. I'm like, hey, Anne is starting on Monday. She's our managing director of HRQ in Denver. And I was going to be traveling. I'm like, can you make sure there's flowers on our desk that day? And she's like, sure. She's like, God, I wish it wasn't such a hassle. And I wish this Bay Area company was here. They just make it so much easier to order flowers and have them show up. So I'm like, well, what are they doing? And what's this company doing? So a 2-hour conversation on a Friday afternoon about why is this industry so horrible? I went home that weekend. I saved 5 domains, all flower bombers related. And then I flower bombed her on Monday. Like I went to Whole Foods. I faked it. I'm like, I'll make this little arrangement from Whole Foods. And I printed up a sign, you've been flower bombed, with flowerbombers.com on a little sheet. And Chelsea shows up on Monday. She's like, what is happening? Like, so what do you think? Do you want to start a business? Which the HRQ team to this day is like, yeah, when you hijack Chelsea to go do this, it was, not forgotten, but she's still in the family.
Good.
Yeah.
The fact that you, from a conversation, then focused on it for 2 days, came up with domain names. I mean, you think fast. What would the advice be for this group if they have an idea? I mean, I guess you can always pull back from those domain names if you don't want to go through with that. But, what is it? Go with what feels good to you? Or what would your advice be in terms of if you get an idea, how to proceed?
I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, my husband was out of town. That was part of it. I'm like, don't leave me bored. He came back. I'm like, so I have this idea. And, and it wasn't like we started on Monday. I mean, the idea did. But there was time. I mean, she was pregnant. So that gave us some time. And like, got the baby. So there was, a time frame. And I think part of it is that balance between trusting your intuition and gut instinct and knowing your data and getting your facts. But I've never overanalyzed the analytical side. It's listening to the voice of the customer. And I'm like, okay, if I want this as a customer, others probably do as well. And don't get me wrong, we went out and talked to people, but it wasn't this huge formal research study or industry. I mean, the first industry expert, he's kind of the guru, at least as far as US, I just talked to last week, or 2 weeks ago. And that, I mean, other than people who are kind of on the ground in the industry I've talked to for sure, but kind of from a macro level, I'm like, what should our COGS be? And what margins should, here's where we're at. He's like, that's actually really good, right? So it's kind of just trusting your business sense. And I apply the same concepts and philosophy to flower bombers as I do my other companies.
So let's talk about the other companies. You have T-Squared.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So, and this was during the downturn. Jenny Champagne, who I co-founded T-Squared with, she's an exceptional recruiter and search person. Exceptional recruiter. We worked at the same company, but not at the same time. So she went out on her own, and I saw her creating a job for herself. And I'm like, you know what? I see just a ton of talent in you. I trust you. I like you. But let's build a business instead of a job. And so it went from there, and it was around her passion area, which is sales and marketing. It's all executive search around sales and marketing. And really for Rainmakers, T-squared stands for top line talent. So it's all about that. And it's great, she just gets it, and her customers are with her forever.
Good. You mentioned something that when we talked last week I found very interesting. You said a lot of women entrepreneurs that you speak with are looking to create a job for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's very different for how men perceive their new business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and some men might want to be consulting or, create a job for themselves, but what I find is that when I'm sitting down with someone or someone has advice as far as how to launch their business, it's knowing, and there's nothing wrong with creating a job for yourself. I think that works really well for a lot of people's lifestyle and work-life balance and a lot of things that we all crave. But it is a different set of questions that I need to be answering or helping the person with as far as funding, how they're growing their team, what they're doing with their time. It's a different strategy.
And you say men don't look at I'm going to create a job for myself. They're bigger picture.
That's what I've seen, at least as far as the male entrepreneurs that are in my life. It's where do I get the funding? They take the leadership seat, but they take the risk to take other people's capital, which I haven't taken external capital ever. I'm like, God, I have to have a boss then. So I'm like, I don't really want that. So it's more about that than the risk of taking the capital, because I'd spend it wisely, but I don't maybe want to be.
Well, I'll admit, I started my business is a job for me. It's grown, and I don't know if that's a bad thing.
No, but you'll run in.
As one grows.
Put money on it right now. You're going to run into that. Okay, you're one person. Yeah. The brand is you. And it's, at what point do you start adding to the team and shifting your time? Because it'll happen, right? It's like 2 months from now.
And 2 weeks from now. Yeah. And then if she didn't have enough going on, this woman happens to love real estate. Where we all love watching HGTV or going to open houses. No, she started a business. Talk about what you.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of a business, it's kind of amazing, actually. I'm like, oh, we should do more of this. And I think it'll be the retirement gig. So, I'm like, some girls like shoes. I really like real estate. I'm totally on probation. I'm not allowed to go into anything, like commercial or residential. Not happening. It's a problem. So, so we and it's not like big real estate. My friends who are real estate developers, I'm like, oh, that seems really fun. But I'm like, here, I'll invest in their developments. But so we have some properties. Blanc is a venue in Rhino. So it's been really fun to be part of what's happening in River North and that part of town. It's insane. I think Shake Shack opens today. It's like
it is, yeah.
Yeah, plug for them, right? It's like a block from our venue, but it's an event space. Probably 70% weddings, and the rest is commercial use. So it's just a fun space. But again, it was trusting a gut instinct as far as the space is amazing. It's not at all what we're here to buy it for. We wanted a new office space that had enough space to sublet. And the footprint didn't make sense to do that, just financially didn't make sense. But I couldn't get the property out of my head. I'm just like, this place is amazing. It needs to be shared with Denver. The actual building is a 1895-ish building. Like, where do you find that in Denver? And that the aesthetic's just charming. And again,
what is the cross street? 18 and what?
It's at Walnut, 31st and Walnut.
Oh, 31st and Walnut.
Yeah, between 31st and 32nd.
Okay.
So, but
drive by and.
Yeah. And glass of wine in the backyard with my husband. I'm like, okay, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but let's not put the office there. I think it should be a venue. You phone a friend who's in the event space. I'm like, what do weddings go for? Like that fit this many people, and we put in an offer the next day. So yeah,
so
it's worked out great.
So this truly is a serial entrepreneur, as they say. Molly, what if anything about being a woman has shaped your entrepreneurial journey?
I've never, so I feel super fortunate that in my corporate career, and even, again, I think back to high school and college and my corporate career, I never felt like less of a, person, or that I'd be less successful, or that there was a challenge because I was female. Like, I've not, a ton of my friends from high school, like, or guys, like, really good, dear guy friends, and same with college, same with now. I've just never looked at it that way. And in my corporate career too, there were a lot of women in senior positions and in the C-suite. So it never really crossed my mind that there was inequity. And I was sharing with Kyle last week, this forum that I'm in, it's all guys, and like, they have much bigger companies than I have. But you know what? I know I add to the equation and the conversation and look at things differently. So I just never really looked at it that way. I think my eyes have been opened. Probably it was when I joined YPO, there were only 8 of 100 women. Wow. And I'm like, and then I took over membership, and they're like, oh, help us diversify. I'm like, oh, no problem. So I started reaching out to female entrepreneurs in the metro area, and you had to be under age, is it 45 or 40? No, under age 45, and a certain revenue threshold, 8 or 12 million, I forget at the time when it was, before you could qualify. And I couldn't find them. I'm like, what is happening? Why are women not growing their business? And it's just a different risk profile, apparently. I was really bothered by it. First of all, I said I'd help, and I couldn't. Like, everyone, by the time women achieve bigger revenue goals or bigger footprint, they tend to be over 45, right? Because we're having babies and doing other stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
What's been some of the best decisions that you have ever made in any of your companies or just in life?
Marrying my husband.
Good answer.
Yes. Can I get the video? Marrying my husband. Get that on camera. And I'm most proud of how we parent and how my relationship with work spills into how I parent. And yeah, I guess
That's great, because some people say this is my job and then this is my home job. You kind of use the skills and strengths through both.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
your kids are teenagers in middle school.
Yeah.
How did the volleyball tournament go last weekend? Do you ever see what this time of year, like tons of volleyball players downtown? She was at that thing last weekend.
Yeah, there's between the 2 weekends, 20,000 very tall young ladies from across the country and families. No, it's funny. I'm like, oh, I'm with my people. Like, I actually feel short there. It's awesome. So they didn't it didn't go as well. Yeah. And the sad part is one of their strongest players had knee blew out.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's now redshirting.
Did you play volleyball too?
I did in high school.
Did you play in college?
Track and field. I was a high jumper.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. High jumper. That seems fitting for somebody who does what she does. Right? That's a lot of risk. What do you think? You started, did you have mentors when you first started HRQ? I know you were going through your master's, but what were some of the things, or with any of your businesses, that you didn't really know or people weren't really talking about when it comes to starting a business or growing it through the first year and growing it through the first 5 years? What is something that this group might need to know?
Yeah, and the mentorship is important. I think the earlier you can find that. I think I was probably in business maybe 7 years before I got more strategic about it. I think my normal business cadence, whether I was in corporate HR or whatnot, is more of a general management skill set and very planful, and just in life in general, and just that's how I'm wired. But very organized with the business. I ran it like a business and had a budget and a plan and everything, even when it was just me the first half a year. But it's, I think that mentorship is really important. And it was when a woman approached me who was running a technology company that was similar as far as services, and she was closer to the tail end of running that business. And it was really flattering. She had said, "You're the first person I met that I think, like, I want to run this." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to run that." And she was working on her exit strategy. So at that point, and this is probably 12 years ago, I started to think about what is the growth strategy, what's the exit strategy, and getting planful around that. So that shifted, the business kind of shifted at that point as far as where I was spending my time. I put together an advisory board then, so to help me, and that was helpful to have.
How did that change your business once you got serious and got that board together and were more strategic?
We started launching in other markets
Okay.
and expanding that way. By the time we were in maybe 3 or 4 markets, and one of my board members had said, "You can run this market and grow the business, so just be thinking about that, how you get out of your day job." And that was a beautiful day when I hired the first managing director just for this market and relinquished that responsibility and could focus on the whole full-time versus kind of half-time.
What are you most proud about in terms of your business sense, the way you've grown these businesses, thought up these businesses?
It's the people,
The people?
100%, yeah. And again, it's, I go back to the kids, that's just, mom mode, I can't not. But it's the relationship, I think it's the communication. It's, someone just last night, we were out at a happy hour before the Kid Rock concert.
Kid Rock concert.
Anyone there
You are a Michigan
last
girl.
night? Was anyone there last night?
No.
Oh, you guys, I need someone to have been there. It's probably none of the people there last night would be up this early. I'm just telling you. Oh my God. But it's, anyway, they were talking about all their employees and just like, I'm like, well, no wonder if that's how you feel about your employees, that's what they're gonna be, is right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like 99.9% of maybe I said 99.8% of the time, like that's the gift to our business, right? And even like, oh, the millennials, all the millennials are, man, are you guys like tired of getting dogged on? I love my millennials. They're my hardest worker. I mean, we're all hardworking, but you have to pick the right people, regardless of gender,
And
age.
you've picked great people,
Yeah,
but I think you've
for
also
sure.
given them what a lot of managers have a hard time, or founders of companies, like here,
100%.
grow.
Yeah.
You give them the freedom,
For
the
sure.
nudge, and I think that probably it says a lot about you as a leader.
Yeah, I don't want to do their job. Like I've done that. Like it is, and maybe that's different. Like I can see that with some of my friends that like they're still, their tendency is to go back and still get their hands in the pot. It's like, stop it, just pick competent, passionate people and smart people that you trust and build that relationship and, help, be there if you need to catch the ball. But don't assume you're going to catch the ball, right? No one feels good about that.
That's a huge step, because I think that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if it's their own business.
Yeah.
To have trust. I mean, you should, but then to actually do it. Yeah, and it's probably freeing for you.
Yeah.
Or else you'd be working all the time.
Yeah, and you can have other markets and geographies without people running it. And I will skill up and way overhire to have, that, working well and not have to be anywhere.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
What's one action item, and then we're going to open up for the questions, that you would give this room today before they leave? Something to think about as they're branching out or growing their business.
Write things down. I think when, in a way that's, I always, my big thing with the team, and even with the Flower Bombers business model especially, is think about is how you make people feel is really important. Especially we're in this world of technology and devices. Like we both have our devices up here. Like it can become impersonal when it's. I think the intent is to be personal. It can become impersonal. But think about that as far as how your business shows up, how you show up, and how others respond to that. And just like in this day and time, in the digital world, how we make people feel, and whether it's on the team, in 10 years from now, someone I worked with, they're not going to remember what they made, what they this or that. They'll know how it made them feel. But I think in writing down your plans and your aspirations and dreams, writing it down, but use feeling when you do it, not, I am going to, the tactical plan is important, but you really need to, it will help validate if you're doing the right thing too. Like, how do you feel when you're engaging with the work? How do you, it's really important to listen to that. And I knew the first business with 360s, and even at a young age, having received a ton of feedback being in HR, I'm just like, okay, this is what the data says, like to match something that fit with, where I wanted to spend my time, which is relational.
Yeah. I like that. Write things down, your plans, but put your feelings, your thoughts, your why into it. Yeah.
The why, it's back to that project that they did.
Yeah. All right. For Molly. Yes.
Hi, I'm Monica. It sounds like you found a mentor. Oh, thanks. It sounds like you found a mentor because someone actually approached you and said, I really like what you're doing, and then a relationship formed. If you were to give advice on finding a mentor, if you don't have one already, what do you think is important to look for, and what advice do you have as to actually finding that person?
Yeah, and it's interesting because she didn't become my mentor. Those that did, and I'm reading this book right now, and there's a parallel. It's 12 life rules, so 12 life lessons, 12 rules for life, something like that. I'm only on chapter 4. It's kind of interesting. Chapter 2 was a little hard to get through, but the rest has been interesting. But one of the chapters is find people in your life or be friends with people who care about your best interest. And when you're in that relationship. And I've been fortunate that there have been people, I try to be that person, and especially when it's someone that is interesting or that it just resonates. But I think of Tia Bennett, she's one of my mentors. She sat on my advisory board. I don't have that advisory board anymore, but she's just a dear friend now. And she cares about my best interest. And she's just really smart too. But it's, I think that's an important part. But it's hard. You can't just go up to someone, will you be my mentor? Like, it has to be authentic and something that's connecting you. Yeah.
So you mentioned having a board, and I'm just wondering, how did you know when you needed a board? Or wanted?
Yeah, it was around growth and just a bigger plan and aspirations. So there's, and I'm just a sponge, right? And a student became a student of business growth. And again, at a slow pace, like when I do compare, like do the comparison thing, which is not healthy to do to some others that just like crush it as far as the growth. But so classic business growth is going from 0 to 5 million, or 0 to 1 even, is typically you've created yourself a job. So then to go from 1 to 5, it takes a certain type of team, a really utilitarian team. And then from 5 to 10 million takes more process and infrastructure starting to be put in place and some specialization in the team. And then from 10 to 20. And someone had told me, you'll get stuck at 5, you'll get stuck again at 10. You get stuck at 1, you get stuck at 5, and then at 10, we totally got stuck at 10. So, and I'm like, we're not gonna get stuck at 10. So part of it was at 5 million was when I brought the board together to learn from and figure out how to get to 10. Yeah.
Okay.
So
after a frustrating conversation with my boyfriend where he thought like he didn't understand what I was trying to do with my company and the frustrations of being an entrepreneur, I did a Google search on dating an entrepreneur, and there was a ridiculous number of articles, like 2 million, on 20 things you should know before dating an entrepreneur. So I think it's difficult sometimes for partners to understand how to support and how the stresses might be a little bit different than in corporate America. So I was just curious on how you and your husband have figured out or what that relationship looks like in supporting you.
No, it's a great question. And, I was saying to Kyle last week, like, when you get married, you don't really know, like, oh, are they going to be a great parent? Or are they going to be this? And I didn't know my path would go to an entrepreneurial path at all, or that these kind of tendencies were there. But he's just very supportive. So it's not like I was, like, screening for that. I think I was, like, it goes back to the chapter in that book. Like, he's one of the most thoughtful people. And so it's just like, that's what I want in my life, just period, right? Is someone who's caring and thoughtful. He asked his screening question before we got married, actually. It was really the only one I think he asked was, do you want to have kids? Because that's really important to me. And if you don't, it's a deal breaker. I'm like, well, that's cool. It's usually the chick question, kind of. But family is super important to him, and he's an awesome dad and a supportive spouse, and just doesn't have the same ego, maybe. When I look around, and I go back to this just IPO community where the women, several are divorced, and so are some of the guys too. But it is. I'm probably more conscientious too. Like, this is sat down. It sits down at home. My kids don't see me on the phone, even when they're little. And you're driving down the road and they're in the car seat. I was driving down the road and engaged with them. It's not that. It's just shut it off. It'll all be there tomorrow. Yeah.
I was kind of assuming that you had started these businesses and sold them off, and that so serial being, but you still have them all. How do you balance that?
So it is having exceptional people and letting them do their thing. I stepped out of HRQ for 2 years, promoted. At the time, one of my business partners, she was running all of Texas, promoted her to president, and then last year to CEO when I was launching Flower Bombers. And I worked together for now 11 years this summer. So that helps, right, that there's good trust and execution. So, yeah, but it's really, I can't say enough about, and just in communicating too, because now I've stepped back into HRQ with this merger, and it's just an important strategic move for us as far as getting that deal done as well as the integration underway. So, with the Flower Bombers team, I'm like, I'm going to be stepping out a little bit and for a little while, but they've completely risen to the occasion. Yeah. Is that right?
When you step out, do you still have your hands? Do you literally step out?
So with HRQ, I literally stepped out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm asking this question with my frame of a bit of a smaller business, but when you were transitioning from creating a job for yourself to running a business, imagine the cash flow is tight. Do you have a few things that you focused on, when it was less expensive for you to do the work than to pay someone else to?
Oh my gosh, that's a balance, right? So I love those early days too. Like, I just have the best memories of that first year. And so part of it was being planful, again, back to the planful theme. The year before I exited my corporate job, we had just moved here. We had bought a place together. We were newly engaged, getting married the next year. All this stuff was happening. And I turned to my husband, who moved for my job, and I'm like, so I did this class project. I'm really excited about it. Like, what do you think? And he's like, go for it. I think that would be great. And so it was putting as much money away as possible. I'm like, okay, so let's cover the mortgage for the year. Like, and it's, tiny little mortgage at first place, right? So let's cover that for the first year as far as, our jobs. And then just to take that pressure off, I'm like, worst case if it doesn't work, I mean, I can always go back in. But I never really thought about a plan B. Always just kept plan A in front of me. And that was part of the job. I mean, I was filling HR jobs. I'm like, I don't want that job, but this person would be awesome in that job, or Allison would be great, right? So it's growing. Yeah, I'm just thinking of my time that year, and it helps it's a higher ticket price, right? And compared to flowers for sure, because we're not cash flow positive yet. So that helps. Just that the work is doing is you can do if you work hard. It's not as good as your day is long. It's not hourly billable work. So that is super important, just as far as the business model, that as far as managing cash flow. But I worked up to the point where I'm like, I have to have help, or it will compromise the customer experience. So kind of balancing that. And the first person was part-time, right? It was half-time. It was someone who I had worked with though in corporate, so I knew I'd get my money's worth, right, from her working part-time, that I'd probably get close to a full-time outcome. I guess does that help? It's tricky though. I mean, and even with the flower business, like, all right, we need to add a resource here, but I'm like, we can't yet. So, yeah.
There's sort of, for lack of a better phrase, a tipping point, a single hire or a single event, a single result that made you realize, wow, this is much bigger than I ever could have anticipated?
Okay, so here's what's problematic with my hardwiring is I wish that some of those pivot points I would have done more and gone faster. Because I know, and just thinking of HRQ especially, that it can be much more as far as size and scale that it is now. And when you're self-funding a business, it's a little bit different as far as how you grow. And so it's almost like, I want to see it be a $40 million business or in all markets. And it will someday. I won't be the CEO leading that. Like, it's just not where I thrive. It's a different type of relationship with the work than I want to have, and the team probably too. So, but yeah. I wish I would have thought bigger sooner.
That even going from yourself to employee number one with 5 to 10, all the costs out on the back, wow, this is actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a culture of celebration, and it's recognition of the team, right? Because the team is doing the heavy lifting and the hard work. So it's not, I don't want to imply that I haven't acknowledged or aren't absolutely proud of where we're at. But we celebrate, that's just part of our culture. It's just a normal cadence in a business is like, oh, we just had our biggest, client engagement. And just yesterday, there's one of those projects that's like biggest in the history of the company. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to go back and verify. And I verifying that, I'm like, don't say anything to the people who led it, because there will be a surprise. I don't know what it is yet, but something that will recognize that.
You didn't take them to the Kid Rock concert?
Oh my God.
You mentioned one of the things you're so proud of is how you raised your kids and how you took what you were doing or learning, it sounded like maybe I misunderstood, from work and implemented at home. You touched on, that you weren't on your phone, you weren't driving and talking on the phone, but aside from those examples, what do you mean? What did you take from work and implement with raising really awesome sounding children?
Trust me, we will have 3 teenagers by the end of this year, so there are moments. They are awesome though. So it's more how I show up with my relationship to work in front of them, right? Work is not a dirty 4-letter word. Mom goes to work. So this morning was a little heartbreaking for me because my little one, she's 12 now. She's still my little peanut though. She came into my room, which is our room, which is odd at that age, right? But if she's, something's wrong, she'll still come and get in bed at 5:21, to be exact. Came into the room. I'm like, baby, what's going on? She has an eye issue or condition, and she's like, it won't stop running, right? And so, when I'm walking out the door this morning at 7 or whatever time, I'm like, my husband, I'm like, she needs to go to the optometrist, like, this morning. She couldn't open her eye, like, and she's crying, right? So I'm just like, oh, and like, go upstairs and hug her, she's crying, like, but it's, I think, on just the cadence of every day is, like, I go to work, I enjoy it, they see me work hard. I try to get them to things. If this didn't interfere with class schedule or other things, our oldest, I would have, drug her along or invited her to come. But even things in nonprofit that I've been involved in, I worked, the schedule so they can be in the room to see, first of all, their mom doing something positive in the community and giving back in those philanthropic areas. And even just with, employees, they're like, oh, it'd be fun to work there. Like, I think it'd be fun, so that's their mindset, that they're not seeing, like, mom grouching out the door, I'm gonna go to work, or
In the early days, were there any moments where you thought, I don't know if I can do this, and doubted yourself and thought maybe I should go back in the corporate world, or are you just crazy, driven, competitive?
Oh my gosh, no, I would, so especially the first couple of years, I'd have my freak out moment. I never went to plan B with a freak out moment, but it was monthly probably at first, like, oh my God, what am I doing? then it moved to kind of quarterly, and then maybe once a year, kind of like, what, and now I don't have that. It's more, I've been working the last couple of years in a motto, live slow motto, and I'm just super intentional as far as, even though there's a lot going on, just to have the pace not be racing through the day, or like to be in it and not on the run. So, but yeah, no, I'd freak out often.
Great, last question, and we'll have Hal wrap us up.
You mentioned trust and celebration as some cultural aspects of your businesses. Have there been other elements of your company culture that have helped you build successful teams?
Yeah, that's a great question, and for sure, it's always best to ask the team, like, because that's truly what's happening, right? So I was in San Francisco last week with our managing director there, and she was describing our culture to a person we were meeting with, CEO we were meeting with, and it was really great to hear her describe it. She's like, even though our team is spread across the country, we have kind of a core group here and clusters in the 6 to 7 different markets or their teams, but everyone's like either out with clients or we don't come together but maybe once or twice a year as a team other than virtually. But she's like, I've never felt more connected on a team. I was like, oh, that is awesome to hear, just because of how we behave and interact with each other. And the industry, or at least part of the segment of our business that is search related, executive search related, can be like, a lot of cultures are really competitive and people are like, oh, sharp elbows and this and that. I'm like, that's why we don't hire from the industry. It's because you have to retrain behavior, and it's so that's what I heard last week anyway. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Molly. I think she gave us a lot of good things to kind of implement in our business. I love the trust, celebrate. It's so good.
Yeah, well, and the fun too. So, flower bombers. I do need to now. is anyone from Michigan? If there were no people going to Kid Rock
There's
last night.
one.
Okay, so Flower Bombers, our tagline is we love dropping F-bombs. Kid Rock's a little angry still. I don't know why. There's a lot of F-bombs dropped last night. So you, my dear, even though you weren't there, my fellow Michigander being flower bombed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, you're very welcome.
That's so great. I'm sorry he's so angry.
I don't know. I don't really think he should be our senator. So, our senator for office. That was, I don't know.
All right, well, you guys, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you all enjoyed it.